Hey folks, and welcome back to another DBD video. This one is mainly for newer killer players or for anyone still trying to build out their killer perk collection. Dead by Daylight has a lot of perks, a lot of killers, and a lot of DLCs, so if you're still trying to figure out what is actually worth unlocking, it can get confusing pretty quickly. So today I want to talk about one of the safest killer setups you can work towards: Dead Man Switch, Pain Res, Corrupt, and Eruption. And before anyone says it, no, I'm not claiming I invented this. This is not a new build, this is not secret tech. Most of the killer players already know about this exact kind of setup, but that is actually the point. If you're a newer player to killer and you want perks that work on most of the roster, this is one of the best places to start. Pain Res is probably the best example of why this setup keeps coming back. The perk has been changed several times, nerfed more than once, and according to Nightlight, it still is sitting right on top of the killer usage. That tells you something pretty simple. Even after balance changes, killers want reliable regression, and Pain Res gives you that without asking you to guess which generator is the problem or what is more progress. So this video is not look at my secret loadout, it's more like if you're newer and you want a perk package that gives you consistent results across a lot of killers, these are the unlocks I would be looking at. Quick note before we get into the actual gameplay side: at the time I'm recording this, DBD is running its 10th anniversary sale on Steam, so if you're missing some killers or DLCs, this is a good time to check what you still need. For the setup, you would be looking at the Artist for Pain Res, Slinger for Dead Man Switch, Plague for Corrupt, and Nemesis for Eruption. I'm not saying you should buy every DLC just for the sake of it, although their price is very cheap compared to what they usually are, but if you're newer and you want perks that stay useful on a lot of killers, these are some of the strongest unlocks to consider. Now before we go perk by perk, here's the job of each slot. Corrupt gives you an easier start, Pain Res hits the generator closest to being finished, Dead Man Switch turns hooks into gen blocks, and Eruption punishes important gens after you kick them and get it down. That is the basic game plan. It's quite simple. Start the match with more control, get hooks, slow down the right gens, and avoid wasting time on random kicks. Now let's start with Corrupt Intervention. Corrupt is useful because it protects the opening, which is where a lot of killers' game can start feeling messy, and it's also where some people start feeling anxiety. When you do your first chase and you have 1 to 2 to 3 gens pop in the first 90 seconds of a match, it impacts you a lot. So without Corrupt, survivors can spawn split and immediately work on different gens. If your first chase takes too long, the match can get uncomfortable. Corrupt blocks that farthest generators, making the active part of the map smaller. That gives you more room to find your first chase, especially in killers who need setup, killers with slower mobility, or killers who need time to build power. But Corrupt is not an excuse to wander around. Use that opening to find survivors, read their spawns, and start pressure early. If you spend the whole Corrupt timer doing nothing, the perk did its job, but you did nothing. Next is Pain Resonance. Pain Res is simple. You hook on the Scourge hook and the generator with the most progress gets hit. This is extremely useful because you do not always know which gen is close to popping, and Pain Res finds that gen for you. You're getting slowdown for something you already want to do, which is down survivors and hook them. There is though one warning: don't throw your game for a Scourge hook. If the hook is close, take it. If it's across the map and the survivor's about to wiggle off or could wiggle off, just keep your tempo, okay? One bad carry can lose more pressure than Pain Res gives back, and it's just not worth it. Dead Man Switch is what makes the Pain Res hook more annoying. After you hook someone, Dead Man Switch activates. During that window, if a survivor lets go of a generator, that gen gets blocked. Pain Res can force survivors off the gen, which can then trigger a Dead Man Switch at the same time. So survivors have awkward options: stay on the gen and risk being interrupted, let go early and lose time, hide for a few seconds and still lose time. That is the strength of the combo. Your hook does not only affect the survivor on the hook, it also affects the generator survivors are trying to finish. Pain Res gives the regression, Dead Man Switch blocks the generators. Together they turn one hook into map pressure. The fourth and last perk is Eruption. You kick a generator and it gets marked. and when you down a survivor, marked generators lose progress. Eruption fits this loadout because it adds another way for defending important generators. But this is where people can waste a lot of time. Eruption does not mean you kick every gen you see. You kick central gens, you kick high progress gens, you kick gens survivors keep returning to, and you kick gens in the area you actually want to defend. If a generator has barely any progress or it's on the wrong side of the map, then leave it. Eruption is good when your kicks have purpose. It gets weaker when kicking replaces chasing. The main reason I like recommending this loadout to newer killer players is because it gives you a clear and consistent game plan without relying on anything too complicated. It transfers very well across the killer roster. It's not perfect on every killer and it will not always be their absolute best loadout, but as a default setup it's very safe. Huntress likes the cleaner start than hook rewards. Artists can pressure gens from range and make DMS switch more annoying. Slinger gets strong hook pressure, Play gets time to infect early, Nemesis gets help through their slower early game, and on stronger killers like Nurse, Spirit, Blight, or Wesker, slowdown becomes even more punishing because they can end chases pretty quickly. So if you are a newer player and you're trying to decide which perks are actually worth unlocking, this is a very solid place to start. Corrupt protects your opening, Pain Rest rewards your hooks, Deadman Switch blocks gens after hooks, Eruption gives you extra regression when you kick the right gens. The only thing I would keep in mind is that the perks will not play the game for you. Do not force bad Scourge hooks, do not kick every gen just because Eruption exists, and do not forget that this loadout has no real chase support. You still need to find survivors, take smart chases, and keep your pressure moving. But if your goal is consistent killer value across most of the roster, this is one of the safest perk packages you can work towards. Again, buy what you actually want, especially during the sale. Let me know which killers you would run this on or which perk you would swap if you wanted to adjust the loadout. And as always, I hope you enjoy.